When Drops of Jupiter came out, I got a written letter from a little girl who just said, my dad just died and Drops of Jupiter was our song. And while he was dying, she said, it's okay, I'll see you again because I'll always be your Drops of Jupiter. And like, you know, I'm going to cry thinking about it because it's insane that something I've done made that connection for them. Because she'll always have that. When Hey Soul Sister came out, I got an email from a family that they had an 8-year-old son with a high level of autism. I'd never heard him speak. In 8 years, he didn't speak. And they were making dinner and they heard the sound in the other room. And they went in and he was holding the TV singing Hey Soul Sister.
Amazing.
And I was like, man, there's some serious magic in music. And so whatever I got to do to participate in that, I'm in.
Welcome back to Spin Magazine's Lipsers. I'm with the incredible Pat Monahan from Train. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here. The Today Show this morning, now here. Tonight we got this exciting gig and the tour, which is amazing that you just announced that.
Yeah.
Do you love New York, Pat? How you feeling?
And you know what else happened today is we've been, Jerry in my band and Matt, we have been writing the music for a musical for 6 years.
Amazing.
Called Begin Again. And it just announced today because we are in a theater in San Diego starting next September.
Now, this is something you've been working on, I think, for a long time. I heard you talk about it a couple of years ago, right?
It's been 6 years of
6 years.
We're on our third book writer. She's doing an amazing job, really has turned things around. But yeah, today was a pretty good, fun day.
Amazing. It's got to be really hard getting a musical made, I would imagine, right?
I think it's not easy. And they feel like we're ahead of the timeline.
Yeah.
Which, you know, in rock and roll, we're way behind the timeline, you know?
And I heard you mention when they say, like, in Broadway terms, like, amazing, that means go back and rewrite it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is incredible.
Just do it again.
Just rewrite it.
Well, there's so much to get into. Obviously, the tour was just announced. George Lopez was in the video.
Yeah.
Butch just joined the band. We love Butch Walker, which is incredible. And the tour it's 25 years of Drops of Jupiter. Did you ever think to yourself, like, you'd be sitting here talking about this in this tour?
You know, if I'm honest, yeah. From the beginning, I would say to people, we won't be the biggest band in the world, but we'll outlast them.
Incredible.
And it's just maybe, you know, I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania, and work ethic was the only way of survival, that and comedy. And the work was never going to leave me. Like, I'm not afraid to work and I'm not afraid to be competitive. And I think those two things, desire, really plays a big role in, we've never been the biggest band in the world, but we're never going to not want to be the biggest band in the world.
But also not many bands can claim to have like diamond status. And it's probably like 1 billion streams at this point, right? So, because diamond status doesn't really exist anymore. If someone sells like 50,000 records, it's like a #1 record. So back in the day when people could literally have sold 10 million records, pretty astounding, right?
And that meant a lot of money too.
Yeah, it did. You grew up as like one of 7 kids. Was anybody else in your family like into music, or were you the only one?
My dad was a drummer, like in the Air Force.
Oh, very cool.
So he was in a little jazz band. He was a huge jazz lover. And then I was the last of 7 kids, so I grew up around all their music until I found my own, which was my first album was Allentown, of all albums. I found Michael Jackson and Aerosmith, and those were like 2 things that my family weren't listening to, but they turned me on to the Beatles and Zeppelin and Chet Baker and Carly Simon and everything else.
Do you remember your like first musical memory?
You know, a strong memory for me is I talked my dad into buying me a drum set. And if you knew my family, you knew that a drum set was not in our budget. It was probably a $300 drum set that was not, you know, but he caved, as I would say. And I just, man, I played those things like they were a $25,000 Pearl kit. They were just meant everything to me.
I feel like we've had so many singers on the show that started as drummers. I'm a drummer too, and it's funny, when I first told my parents I was playing drums, they locked me in the basement. It's never something, can't you pick up the bass? It's like no one wants
something
you to start.
You can put headphones on with.
Right, because the drum, I think I would play at like 7 in the morning, literally, and my dad was like, anything else, but like I can't wake up to this,
Well, then it made you a living, so I mean, it worked out. So your parents trusting you. That's the thing with music, is you either have a ton of support or a ton of disbelief. Those are the two motivating factors.
Definitely.
And I had support.
What did your parents do for a living?
My father was a clothes salesman and a haberdasher who sold hats, and my mother was she worked for a magnetic company. But she didn't work until I was born, and she was like a processor in deliveries and getting material out. So
how did you first sort of like discover your voice? And because drums was
a funny story, because sports was everything to me. And in the 7th grade, maybe the 8th grade, I was in a carpool going to basketball practice, and then we come back in somebody else's car, and a Michael Jackson song was on, and everybody starts singing to it, including me. And then they all stopped and looked at me like, what is coming out of you?
In the falsetto, or were you
just whatever. Right. But I was getting it right.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time that my peers saw something special in me, because it definitely was not on the basketball court.
And then did you eventually like join a band? How did it all start?
Then it was just like that moment really was defining for me, because then it was that feeling I had in that car. How do I get those feelings? How do I get people to see me as something other than, this quiet kid that doesn't say or do much? And I just wanted to recreate that moment. So I started finding musicians. I went to a Catholic school from 1st grade through 10th grade, and begged my parents to let me go to a public school, because then they had varieties of people who were doing things that weren't just jazz band, but they were guitar players and bass players. And I eventually went from the drum set to the front, because you could find 40 drummers, right, and very few 16-year-old boys willing to sing in front of girls.
Remote jamming has never been easy. Introducing Loopfish, the device that finally makes it work. Loopfish fixed everything that was broken with online rehearsals and recording. The Loopfish stream leverages a direct Ethernet connection to solve the problems that have plagued remote rehearsals, including latency, jitter, and poor audio quality. When milliseconds matter, Loopfish keeps you in sync. Was there a lot of musicians in Erie? I would imagine there's not like a ton of talent.
There were, but it's like my son's going through now. He's 14, so he's in bands with high school kids and older, and it was like that for me, because there are some 14-year-old musicians now that are incredible. And so in Erie at the time, I needed to be with older people. They were taking it more seriously. But Erie was also a big part of why I ended up pursuing music, because I was in a cover band called Rogues Gallery, and we were playing a bar.
Mostly Zeppelin, right?
Mostly Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And there's a guy named David Shelley, who was Cher's guitar player, and they played the 5,000-seat arena the same night we were performing. And then David and his band came in, and he pulled me aside and he gave me his phone number. He's like, I live in LA, and whatever you're doing, you got it. And so go there and hit me up. So I did. And he was always on tour. We never connected. But I give him that credit to give me the courage, because somebody from LA saw me. He was originally from Florida. He passed a few years ago, but I got to thank him in person, and we got to be friends before he passed, and let him know that even though we never connected, he was why I went, and then eventually moved to San Francisco.
Tell me about your connection to Zeppelin, because obviously the band does incredible versions of Zeppelin songs. So did you always have that connection to the music? Was it always like Zeppelin first? I mean, you mentioned the Beatles and Michael Jackson, but was Zeppelin always sort of the holy grail of...
That was my holy grail.
Yeah.
Because all four men were irreplaceable.
Yeah, that's true.
And the same with the Beatles, but that was, I felt like that was maybe my brother's band, and I could have my own by having Led Zeppelin.
Sure.
And everything they did, I remember turning my friends on to, Houses of the Holy or Physical Graffiti or whatever. And my son, who's Rock is 14, whenever we come to New York, we got to go to the Physical Graffiti building. Like, he's as obsessed with Led Zeppelin as I was, because it's a timeless, when you see what they did together, it's just weird. You could pick whatever one you wanted to be, and it was still going to be the coolest guy in the band,
Definitely. It's also an incredibly hard band to cover.
Yeah.
And you guys do an amazing job. And does you ever think like this is daunting? I mean, people would say to me, just play like a Zeppelin song. I'm like, I'm never going to be as good as John Bottom. So I don't want to attempt to do that, right?
Yeah.
But talk to me about moving, obviously, from Pennsylvania to San Francisco, which is a big move. What kind of made you move there, and your career trajectory from that point on?
Well, at the time, I was with a girl who I was like, I'm moving to LA, and she was like, don't you mean we? And then we went to LA, and we lived in Hollywood, where there were a lot of helicopters and gunshots and craziness. So going from Erie to that was a real culture shock.
What part of Hollywood did you live in?
We lived on Hollywood and Colfax.
Okay.
Oh, no, Wilcox. Sorry. That's deep.
Because I think Butch
Right
lived
by
on.
Cahuenga.
I lived off of Yucca, and I think Butch lived right by there. So.
Yeah, we all could have walked to each other.
Yeah.
But it was scary. And then I got a job in construction and would get on the bus every morning at 4:45 and grind it out. And, it was the time of music magazines where we could try to make music connections.
Yeah.
And so I met a lot of people and ended up meeting the guy I started Train with. My girlfriend at the time and his wife were school teachers together. So we met. Rob was in a signed band called the Apostles in LA, and I had very little going on. So I would go see his band, and he would come and see me and my guys, and we got on pretty well at the time. And then I moved back to Erie, and he needed to make a change with his band because they lost their deal, and he had gone to Cal Berkeley, so he knew the area and was like, why don't we connect? Why don't we both move to the Bay Area and just the two of us start this?
This is what, about 94 or so?
I think it was maybe 93.
Okay.
Because I graduated in high school in 87, so it might have been 92 even, because I moved to LA when I was 19, and San Francisco probably when I was 20. Yeah, maybe 23. So yeah, it was probably 93 or 4.
You guys were grinding it out constantly. It didn't happen immediately for you.
No.
Constant touring, right? Talk to me about those early days.
I was a house painter because I grew up in my dear friend Mary Grace Umpleby, or Calabrese. She went back to her maiden name. She taught me how to hang wallpaper. So that was my trade. I moved to the Bay Area, and there's no wallpaper hangers. So I got hired by a painter, and he taught me how to paint. And so every morning I would go paint houses, go home, take a shower, and Rob and I would drive to San Francisco and play any open mic we could find.
Amazing.
And write songs and do the thing. And man, I'll tell you, a couple years of that, I finally started my own painting company and bought a house because it looked dreadful that it was ever going to happen. But like I said, work ethic was never going to be a problem. I was never going to be afraid to do the work. So I ended up hiring a couple of the guys that ended up being in Train just to paint houses.
Amazing.
So they could make some money as well. And so I grinded away at that. And I'm not religious. I was raised Catholic, but boy, I started praying during that time. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how much more of this do I have to do?
Because this has gone on for a couple of years. You're touring and just not really clicking
this
yet,
is
right?
3 years in San Francisco of free shows. And, we finally got a little recognition. The Counting Crows were friends of a few of the guys in Train. So they let us store our gear in their facility while they toured, and they connected us with their lawyer. And their lawyer came in and helped us find a manager who was, his name was Arnie Postilnik, who was at Bill Graham Management.
Sure.
And then we met a guy named Nick Lachey and his brother John Lachey. And one of them worked for Columbia Records and said, I love this. But he was in the marketing department. So he convinced them to have us fly from San Francisco to New York. We performed for them. And Jonathan Daniel, my manager, was actually at that show, which is insane.
We love Jonathan Daniel.
The
guru of all gurus.
I hadn't known him at the time, but he was there. It was a place called Don Hills.
By the way, one of the greatest places ever.
Right. I had a good friend at the time who taught me a little bit about goals. And he said, you guys better figure out what your goal together is, because you're a lot different than one another. You're not guys that grew up together. And so I was like, let's write on this chalkboard what our goals are. You know, whatever the thing was, money and et cetera. And the only thing we had in common really was we all wanted to make an album. So we were like, fuck it. We don't need Columbia Records. Let's make our own album. So we were able to raise $25,000 through friends and family. Charlie Colleen, our bass player, had a friend who had some gear. So we made a record in Laguna Beach. And Meet Virginia was on like a playlist. They used to make CDs that were like people's choices of different Hootie and the Blowfish and Dave Matthews and all of that at the time. So they took Meet Virginia and a song called Free and put it on this compilation. And we started to get some notice from college kids. So Columbia Records, a guy named Tim Devine, he hears about this and starts to pursue us again from a different angle because he's an A&R guy, not a marketing guy. So he represents us in that album to Columbia Records, to Don Einer, as Project X and doesn't tell them who we are. Because once a no, always a no.
Of course.
And so they gave us a deal through Aware Records, a guy named Greg Latterman who ran that. And Greg was our captain, our quarterback, and then Don Einer and the guys were going to be the umbrella company. And they grinded away, and Meet Virginia became a hit. And I was on my way to paint a house when I first heard it on the radio. So I turned around and went home and realized I wasn't going to get paid that day. So I went back the next day to paint the house.
Amazing. Donnie Einer appears later in your history too, obviously. He was very much a staple in your career.
Big part of Drops of Jupiter. Don is a guy who, you know, I don't know if you say he had a lot of enemies, but there were a lot of people that didn't like him. Because if you're the boss in that era, it was the era of push people to their limits, use your outdoor voice. You know, this isn't a quiet time. It's people yelling and getting things done. And we had this terrible rule in the band, which was we need to write songs together. And it wasn't going great. You know, I write music, or I write melody and lyrics. They were writing the music, and we were getting where we were getting, but we were writing the Drops of Jupiter album. This is after the success of the first album, which just gave us a chance to make another one. And Don was like, you don't have a single. And we weren't allowed to write outside of the band. So we're all just writing and trying and doing whatever, and it's not going anywhere. And my mother died during this time, which was really hard for a 30-year-old kid to lose, like, the woman of his life.
Definitely.
And one day I got a phone call that Don wants to see me. And that means he's going to say, you got to write some songs with my guys now. That whatever that rule is doesn't exist anymore until we get the single. And about 2 days before that trip, I went to bed, woke up 10 minutes later, and wrote Drops of Jupiter in 15 minutes and sang it into a dictaphone and went to a friend's house the next day and demoed it. And didn't think much of it. And then he came over with a CD and he was like, something special about this. And I was like, probably not. It's like 4 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, but it came from a big part of me, the heart of me. And my mother definitely wrote this song with me, if not wrote the whole thing. And then I went to meet Don Einer in New York, and he basically played all these songs, and he's like, this is a hit because they wrote with whatever. And he was basically taking me down the road to, you're going to co-write the single. And I said, no problem, whatever I got to do. But I just wrote this song and demoed it from a dream. And he was like, oh man, these are where all the special ones come. So he closed his eyes and turned the stereo up and then kept turning it up and up and up. And then as soon as he heard Plain Old Jane, told a story about a man who was too afraid to fly, so he never did land, he just went, whoa, fucking song of the year. And that was how it happened. And when Don was passionate about something, he drove his people to the ground to make it happen. And that's why I will always be in debt to him.
And talk to me about the lyrics of that song, because that song especially, like you said, it kind of came to you in a dream within like 10 minutes. And lyrically, it still hits so hard, I think, for yourself. And I'm sure 25 years later, when you play it, and this tour is all based around that, it's got to be so heartfelt still for you still, right?
Yeah, it'll always be that one special connection to me and my mother that means a lot to me, and I think means a lot to others. Because, you know, as songwriters say, once you release it, it's no longer about you. It's about everybody else. And the emails and letters that I would get about the connections that it's made with people are really beautiful. And I really treasure that about Train fans, is that they get the thing that I do. So I'm just, you know, I think Miley Cyrus hit Jonathan Daniel the other day, and she was like, how about your boy writes me this, and sent him Drops of Jupiter. I was like, how about your boy writes that shit for myself? I can't even do that.
Was it cathartic for you to write a song like that just to heal, I would imagine?
Yes.
So, right? Yeah.
I mean, healing, I always feel so badly for people dealing with mental health and depression, because music, I deal with my own stuff too, because I'm a human being. But being able to write songs, and like I've sent songs to my wife that she just like cries, and she's like, I'm so sorry that you feel like this. And I was like, but I don't kind of anymore. I was able to get it out of me, you know, and that release is really healing.
You went on to win a Grammy for it, and then another Grammy later on. Do those awards still mean a lot for you? And I'm sure your house is, I've heard that you kind of put, you know, you don't really display them, but when people walk in, you're like, but let me just tell you about them, but they're not like outwardly open on display, right?
I don't really even know where they are. I
in a basement somewhere or something?
Just, they're somewhere visible, but not in a visible area.
Yeah.
Like I don't...
It's weird, right? If people walk in and you have all these like awards.
Well,
right?
I would like my house to be filled with photos of the people that matter to me, instead of the things like that matter to me. But
unless you're Gene Simmons and he has them fully on display,
yeah, that's okay. That's what he needs for himself. I don't need that. Like, but I certainly wouldn't mind going back to get another one.
Definitely. Talk to me about the shift sort of lyrically for you when the next records, right? Like Hey Soul Sister, Calling All Angels, because I think you kind of went through a little bit of a dark time with the band, and then lyrically things shifted for you.
Yeah, so all the way through the Calling All Angels, My Private Nation area, I was in a marriage that was really not good out of the gate and was just getting worse. And so all the songs I was writing were, you know, I'm sorry and, you know, whatever, it's all bad. And then I met my wife, who is really the girl of my dreams. And it was still Train, and we made a record called For Me It's You, where I was in between the sadness and the getting myself into a better place. And the record was annihilated. Like, it was a horrible flop. So then I thought, oh, I know what to do. I'll make a solo record. And at the time I had a different manager than Crush. And so I made a solo record, and it was just the wrong record. It was my way of just trying to get out of the band and hoping that it succeeded so I wouldn't have to go back. And that was the opposite of what happened. It didn't do well. But my wife and I were really happy, and I made a record that didn't do well. I was about bankrupt. I was writing songs for Save Me San Francisco, which was not that at the time. And I started writing songs with a guy named Sam Hollander. And Sam was working out of the same office as the Crush management guys, and Jonathan and I would literally see each other at the water jug. And I would start asking him questions about, like, how would you do this? And, you know, and he would just answer it, go back to his desk. I'd go back in the studio with Sam and whatever. And I've known Butch Walker for, you know, even way before Sam, like back in the first tour ever. But never connected the fact that, you know, Jonathan, Butch was Jonathan's first artist, and really never thought about Jonathan as my manager, because Butch was power pop, and he had, you know, he was producing big records now, and then they had Fall Out Boy, and you know, the
Few by Ramen bands, Gym Class Heroes, and all those guys.
It was a different thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't know who was going to manage me, but eventually Sam Hollander was like, you know, Jonathan, you should think about managing Pat. He's writing some really good stuff, and he's maybe your kind of guy, because I have a very dark humor.
Hence why you're friends with a lot of comedians, I guess, too, right?
Oh, man, that's why I'm friends with George Lopez and all these guys. But he said, hey, let's listen to what you got and come up with an idea. Maybe I can help you. He didn't say I'll manage you. He listened to 72 songs.
Wow.
One of them was Hey Soul Sister. And he was like, this song's really something interesting about it. It wasn't in the version that you know, but then I met with some other managers, and Jonathan said, hey, if you get a Pete Wentz haircut, I'll manage you. You know,
is that like, really what he said?
It was exactly what he said. And then he laughed, because that's his humor. Right. And I was like, man, if you would manage me, it would really help me. And he was like, why don't you meet Bob McLean, who's my partner?
Yeah.
And I met Bob, and I was like, I'm out. No, I'm kidding. Bob was like, yeah, let's do this. And
because Hey Soul Sister was written, again, on probably No Sleep in New York.
Yep.
So it almost feels like that's the best time when you write songs.
Yeah, I wrote that and If It's Love, so the same day, but with two different writing groups. One, my friend Greg Wattenberg, I wrote If It's Love, and then went downstairs to a couple of guys that called themselves Espionage.
Sure.
And wrote Hey Soul Sister, and it was on guitar and sounded okay. And then Espen picked up a ukulele, and all of a sudden it came to life. But, you know, then we were able to take those 72 songs, turn them into 6. And then we had some places to go. And the last song that was written for it was Save Me San Francisco, and that was with Sam and Dave, so Sam Hollander and his partner Dave Katz at the time. And that was the defining, you know, because I knew that we needed to get back to our roots of San Francisco, and the only people that could save our career, our band, were San Francisco.
And again, this is, I think, around 2009 when songs were just starting to blow up on the internet. So I feel like that song definitely had a life of its own. Aside from just writing it, then it took on a life on the internet, right?
It was also the beginning of texting becoming bigger than phone calls.
Right, true.
So
now you can't call anyone.
Kids were texting each other, hey, soul sister, and it became part of, you know, the fabric of human life. Before this Save Me San Francisco comes out and everything, and Jonathan takes over, I said, hey, you might want to look at my finances before you take this on, because I'm in a bad place. So he calls me the next day after talking to my business manager, and he just goes, I've seen worse. Now let's move 3 years from that moment. And Save Me San Francisco, the album does great. Hey Soul Sister is the biggest song of the year. And this is 3 years later, out of nowhere, Jonathan just says to me, hey man, I've never seen worse. And I knew exactly what he meant.
But that's why they call him the guru.
Yes, he's the guru.
Because he can listen to 72 songs.
I've seen worse.
And just pick it out.
Hey, by the way, I've never seen anything that terrible.
Talk to me about, again, like Butch Walker coming into your life, working with Butch, and this incredible collaboration.
Butch works, he worked on the next album a lot, which was California 37. He produced that. And I think the one after that was Bulletproof Picasso, which he produced. And, Butch and I write songs on almost every album. There were a couple that we didn't, but I fit with him. We're very similar. Like, we're the same age, but we come from a similar place of, like, there's no end to the desire.
Right.
Like, Butch plays guitar, so beautifully and so fun to watch. And he's such a great frontman. He certainly doesn't need me, but we need him. And he gets to play, big songs in front of a lot of people. And it's just been so fun for both of us, because it's like, I've asked Jonathan for years, can I ask Butch to be in my band? And he was like, nah, he's busy.
Why now, by the way? Because he was filling in like a year ago.
I think it was because Butch is at a place where he's like, and nothing is forever, right? So Butch doesn't have to go like, yeah, I can commit to the next 25 years. He's just like, this is fun. Let's just have fun until it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's just like a great marriage or a great non-marriage, right? So you just go like, why do we have to get married when we could just have this for as long as we have this until we just want to be friends? And it was just good timing for him, and it was the right timing for us. And it's just been nothing but great, because now we're writing better songs now as these two old cats, and with Jerry and Matt, and better songs than maybe I have in, since Hey Soul Sister.
Amazing.
And so you just never know why things are supposed to happen at a certain time. But I've always thought, the time between Drops of Jupiter and Hey Soul Sister was like 10 years. So now it's been more than 10 years. No one is thinking that Train is going to have anything to do with anything popular again.
Yeah.
That's when it's fun.
Definitely.
I just saw a musical yesterday where it was about Bobby Darin, and one of the catchphrases of the whole thing was never, what was it? Never count Bobby Darin out. And I just started thinking,
Train out.
Never count Train out.
Talk to me about the new record. Obviously, the last record was done over Zoom, which is always weird, right? Because it's hard to write, during COVID, we really had no choice. People had to write music over Zoom, and it was weird. Everyone was quarantined. But this new record that's coming out, can you tell me more about it? What's going on?
Well, during COVID, I went from I don't know anything about a studio to I know a lot about it.
Right.
Because, the way we survive is not just making music and doing live performances, but it's corporate shows. And we do enough of them that it keeps us alive for the year.
You do incredibly well with those.
Because, back before Jonathan took over, I was desperate to make a living, paying alimony and child support and just the things that, mistakes that you make and you end up in a position where you're in trouble. And I came back from a tour that lost $80,000 on my solo tour, and my old manager still commissioned it. And I was living in that world.
Sure.
And so my friend Matt Barnett, who's an artist buyer for corporations, he knew I was in Hawaii on this very inexpensive stay. And he was like, hey, Seal just canceled a show on Lanai. I know Pat's in Hawaii. Can he get Jerry to fly over from San Francisco and they can do the show? And that show was $80,000.
Amazing.
So paid my debt on the tour. And Matt and the audience were so impressed that it was so not full of shit. It was very, we played covers and had fun and told jokes, and it was just, it just became the beginning of my corporate career. And during that time, it was still not cool to do corporate stuff because it took you out of being an artist. And I was like, I'm kind of over the artist thing.
Yeah.
I need to make a living. And these are future fans to me.
Definitely.
These aren't the enemy. And since then, it's just gotten to be incredible. And then COVID came, and we had to figure out how can we do corporate shows for these people that still have meetings with 30,000 people on a Zoom call.
Sure.
And we figured it out with our crew how we could record live versions of songs, and we could all be interacting with them, and then my band would mute, and they would have to be like basically pretending to play like this is all a giveaway, but it's the only way to do it on the internet.
Sure.
I would push play on the live track that we recorded and sing live to tape.
Right, so you
So
did
if I
corporate
hit the
gigs,
wrong button, it's all bust.
but you were doing corporate gigs over Zoom.
Over Zoom.
Oh, I'd never heard of that before.
Many,
Wow,
because we figured it out.
amazing.
And without this great crew of mine, we never would have put it together. But
Yeah.
we knew that the lag, there's no way that three people
Sure.
in three different places on the internet can perform in sync. So we figured out the way to do it, and I was able to pay all these guys for a year and a half to pay their mortgages and shit. It was a hard time.
And these days, it's not a dirty word. I mean, Aerosmith does corporate gigs. Everyone does them. So I think the economics of music has changed so much to the physical records, to downloads. I mean, bands are really just making money now by touring and merchandising. So you really had to do those things to survive. And I think it's, at this point, like everyone does them. So it's not weird at all. But over Zoom, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. I never thought of corporate shows as uncool. Like, because everyone who's seeing you for the first time is a future fan.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, I never understood the psychology of this is bullshit. This crowd sucks. They don't know me. They don't care about me. Like, yeah, but that's your job to make them.
Right. Talk to me about the new record. What can you tell me? The last record,
It's
little bit of a throwback?
it's a rock and roll record.
Awesome.
You know what inspired me? Like, I've met Billy Joel a few times, and I love him. I think he's amazing. I sat with him at Howard Stern's wedding, and was just kind of stayed away from him because I'm a fan of his. And then I watched the Billy Joel documentary, and I was like, I want to be that.
Yeah.
He's the most prolific American writer of all time by a lot. Like all those hits and all those different styles, like no one was as good as him.
Well, 150 shows at MSG. I don't think anybody's ever done that before.
I mean, he inspired. We're making a rock and roll album that is, it's going to be a lot of fun to listen to.
And let's talk about the tour just announced. Obviously, Bare Naked Ladies. I think Matt Nathanson, right?
Yep.
So pretty exciting. I mean, 25 years.
Yeah, I've known the Bare Naked Ladies guys for a long time, and we finally have an opportunity to work together. And, Matt's been a friend since our first days in San Francisco. But we haven't done a tour with Matt in at least 10 years. So it'll be fun to have him back out there with us.
And I think you're hitting like 38 cities or something next summer, right?
I think it's almost 40, yeah.
Tickets just went on sale. Talk about your friendship with George Lopez, because that's a pretty cool thing. Again, you're friends with every comedian there is. So.
I'm friends with a lot of comedians, but many of them through golf.
Right.
So like George and I met through a golf thing in San Francisco and just really got on well. He was with Cedric the Entertainer at the time. Cedric's a great guy. There's something about my coming up in life and comedians that I really relate to, because to make people laugh is such a joy, but there's a lot of pain that goes into that.
Very dark.
And these guys have that. And George has been through a lot, and we're good friends, and I think we consider each other family. Ken Jeong is another friend of mine that we have a deep friendship. There's my new favorite comedian. He's incredible. His name is Rory Scovel.
Sure, I heard of him.
He is ridiculously funny. So he's a golfer. And the game of golf has really made some of my best friends. that music never did. Like Butch, I've known for all these years. He's one of the few that I've connected with for a long time because we have a similar heart.
Weirdly enough, a lot of comedians are musicians. I think Bill Burr is a drummer. Fred Armisen obviously is a drummer.
Yep.
There's this weird connection between comedians and musicians. It's always been
You
there.
know, it's kind of like sports and music where we care more about a joke than we do a song.
Right.
Like you'd be like, dude, you want to hear this new song? You're like, no, you got a joke?
Is there one story that you remember that, you know, in the way that your songs have touched people, that a fan came to you and said, this happened to me because of Drops of Jupiter, Hey Soul Sister, that you'll never forget?
There are two stories that stick out. One is when Drops of Jupiter came out, it was a time of very few emails. And so I got a written letter from a little girl who just said, my dad just died and Drops of Jupiter was our song. And while he was dying, she said, it's okay, I'll see you again because I'll always be your Drops of Jupiter. And like, you know, I'm going to cry thinking about it because it's insane that something I've done made that connection for them, because she'll always have that until she dies. And the other story was when Hey Soul Sister came out, I got an email from a family that they had an 8-year-old son with a high level of autism. And they had never heard him speak. In 8 years, he didn't speak. And they were making dinner, and they heard the sound in the other room. And they went in, and he was holding the TV, singing Hey Soul Sister.
Amazing.
And I was like, man, there's some serious magic in music. And so whatever I got to do to participate in that, I'm in.
Those are incredible stories. Tell me a perfect album for you, Pat. What's a perfect album from start to finish? You put it on the turntable. Obviously, you turn over once. But from start to finish, it's a perfect album for you.
You know, back in the day, it would have been James Taylor's greatest hits, maybe. I think the Eagles' greatest hits was incredible. What's the Bonnie Raitt song or the Bonnie Raitt album that I burnt out with?
Something
Let's give
gold.
them something to talk
sure.
about. But that was also I Can't Make You Love Me was on that record. A few Led Zeppelin records that I could just... we listened to Physical Graffiti backwards and forwards, but I'd probably say Led Zeppelin 2 would be the one. And that's why we re-recorded that album to pay homage to it, because it was kind of the perfect album to us.
You met James Taylor and you're like, let's write a song together.
Well, he said that. He said, we should write sometime. I was like, man, yeah.
And then he ghosted you or something? Or?
I don't think I don't think James Taylor is capable of ghosting. I think James Taylor's just busy.
This is pre-ghosting, I guess, James Taylor's
this is pre-ghosting.
Right.
Or as in Seattle, they call it the Seattle freeze.
Right. But you never did write a song with him, I guess, right?
No, I haven't.
So if you're listening, James...
there's still time.
There is still time. You're forming a supergroup besides your band, Butch Walker. Who else? Maybe you're on vocals, Pat. Who else is in the band?
My supergroup I'm in right now.
That's it.
Yeah, I love these guys. Hector, such a beautiful bass player. Matt Musty, couldn't be around a better drummer and a better guy. Jerry Becker I've been with for, he was our first tour manager. And he was more talented than all of us. And we never knew it until, he was like, can I play it? And then we were like, oh, damn. So I'm kind of in my supergroup.
It wouldn't be about Pat joining Led Zeppelin then.
No, that's I would ruin Led Zeppelin. And I would be like, I'm not listening to that shit.
I know all these songs are like your babies, and obviously it's so hard to pick favorites, but if you had to pick your top 5 Train songs ever, what would they be, starting with number 5?
There's a song called Don't Grow Up So Fast that I really love that I wrote. There's a song called You Can Finally Meet My Mom, because my wife never got to meet my mom, that was very romantic to me, but in a very quirky way, because I thought it was clever at the time. Drops of Jupiter will always be that special song for me. Hey Soul Sister kind of got my life back in order.
Yeah.
And if there was a last one, I guess it would have to be Meet Virginia, because without it, I'm not talking to you.
That's true. Is it possible we'll hear Meet Virginia tonight?
Yeah. It's
Amazing.
possible, but I'm not sure if the check has cleared.
Right.
So we got to check on that.
Definitely. And you have this incredible connection to Zeppelin. We spoke about it. You did Zeppelin 2. If you had to pick your top 5 Zeppelin songs, I know it's a hard one because we spoke about physical
My
graffiti.
son and I were just talking about this, and he said the greatest Led Zeppelin song has to be the Rain song. And I said, what about Thank You? And he's like, yeah, but if you listen to the Rain song and the changes through it, it's really genius. And I was like, okay. And then he mentioned some other ones, but those two would definitely be in there. I would say What Is and What Should Never Be, isn't that? And if I say to you tomorrow.
I'm not going to be able to harmonize with you, by the way.
Two more. I have to say Stairway to Heaven because it's just a masterpiece. It's just incredible. And then...
Is there a number 1 Zeppelin song for you in particular? Or is it
a number 1? Man, I think it would be Thank You. And what is... upon us, but I know that I love you so. It is the winter. Oh, no. What is that song? Second season, I am to know. That's the song that my son thinks is the best Led Zeppelin song, and I think I might agree with him.
I feel like that's off Houses of the Holy. So again, the tour is coming up. You just announced it. We're super excited for tonight. This is going to be so special. We're kind of doing like a storyteller's vibe. So we'll have you talk about the songs. We'll ask about the songs. And then you'll tell these incredible stories about Drops of Jupiter and all the other great stories behind what the meanings of the songs are. It's incredible to have you here tonight. I'm really excited to get this going tonight.
Great. Well, I'm excited to be here with you, Scott. Thanks so much for having us.
Definitely. And we're going to play a song now, which is another first on the show. Please welcome Train, Drops of Jupiter.
Now that she's back in the atmosphere with drops of Jupiter in her head. She acts like summer and walks like rain. Reminds me that there's time to change. Well, since the return of her stay on the moon, she listens like spring and she talks like June. Hey, hey, hey. Tell me, did you sail across the sun? Did you make it to the Milky Way to see the lights all faded and that heaven is overrated? Tell me, did you fall for a shooting star? One without a permanent scar, and then you miss me while you were looking for yourself out there. Now that she's back from that soul vacation, tracing her way through the constellation. Hey, hey. Oh, hey. She checks out Mozart while she does Tabo. Reminds me that there's room to grow. Hey, hey, hey. Now that she's back in the atmosphere, I'm afraid that she might think of me as plain old Jane. Told a story about a man who was too afraid to fly, so he never did land. Tell me, did the wind sweep you off your feet? Did you finally get the chance to dance along the light of day and head back to the Milky Way? Tell me, did Venus blow your mind? Was it everything you wanted to find? And did you miss me while you were looking for yourself out there? Can you imagine no love, pride, deep fried chicken? Your best friend always sticking up for you. even when I know you're wrong. Can you imagine no first dance, freeze-dried romance, 5-hour phone conversation, the best soy latte that you ever had in me? Tell me, did the wind sweep you off your feet? Did you finally get the chance to dance along the light of day and head back toward the Milky Way? Tell me, did you sail across the sun? Did you make it to the Milky Way to see the lights all faded and that heaven is overrated? Tell me, did you fall for a shooting star, one without a permanent scar? And did you miss me while you were looking for yourself? Na 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 na. Did you finally get the chance to dance along the light of day? Na 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 na. And did you fall for a shooting star? Fall for a shooting star? Na 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 na. And are you lonely looking for yourself out there? Thanks.